Hello and welcome to tutorial 6. By the end of this video, you will have learned how to curate your robot command collections, including generating documentation for your commands, and adding descriptions, launch codes, tags, keyboard shortcuts, context filters, and notes. You'll also have learned how to customize and personalize your robot command collections. Let's dive in.
Hello, this is Fay Boardbar.
And this is Erik Ohm.
And last time we talked about turning your Lambda into a robot command and also importing your entire Lambda library into the active workbook. So what are we covering today, Erik?
All right, well, today I wore my collared shirt because today we're going to talk about curating your command collections. This is like making the difference between a kind of a sketchy, hacky little script to turning something into a product version of that. And it makes everything better for you and for others that you share your commands with.
Nice. Okay, let's jump in then. I will share my screen and we can start where we left off before.
Fantastic. Okay, so first of all, think of robot commands as not just something that I've created for you and made available, but there are things that you create for yourself and for others. So when you make something for yourself, if you don't look at it for 6 months and you go to use it again, you're not going to remember how to use it unless you have some notes or some, make it have some documentation or whatever to make it easier. So, and also if you're sharing it with others, it's much harder to use things that other people have created unless it comes along with some additional information to make it easier. So with OA Robot, we've added a lot of features to make it easy for you to curate your robot commands to make them more consumable by yourself and by others. So last time we created, I think you have 2 robot commands in this collection. And one of them was list characters. That was the first one we did. And we also did reverse characters. So to start off with, I'm going to show you, before we do too much more curation, we're going to generate the documentation for this command collection. And you can do that by hitting F1 on one of the commands, and it'll actually generate documentation. Okay, so there we go. So you can see that this is the collection of commands that are in Fay Robot. Very cute. Love it. You have 2 commands in there, and they're listed. So this documentation gets generated automatically based on your definitions of your commands that you created. We did the minimum amount of curation on our commands by giving a command name and a command description. So for each of those, you can see in the documentation there that it has those listed, your name and your description. If you scroll down a little bit, it'll show you the definitions of those. So there you see the definition. So list characters is a formula. It's a formula command, and you can see the formula property there. So this will show you all of the information that's available on that. So what we're going to do is we are going to go back into OA Robot, and we're going to edit that command again, and we're going to add a little bit more curation to that. So to edit a command, you can right-click and choose Edit Command, or you can hit F2, which is, obviously how you would edit anything, right? F2.
Yeah. If anyone uses Excel, they know about F2.
Yes, this is like designed by Excel nerds, obviously. So in this dialog, you have a form. It has a lot of different things you can put in there, but there's a couple at the top that are the most important. It's always good to have a nice description so that other people can understand what your command is doing. Launch codes. Let's talk about launch codes. So if this is something that we want to use and be very quick at finding in the list, or make it easy for other people to find in the list, it might make sense for that command to have a launch code set up. It's typically like 1 or 2 or 3 characters. In this case, RC would make a lot of sense because that's reverse characters, and a lot of times we want to just have the launch code be the shortest number of characters. What a launch code does is it prioritizes that. So the way Hypersearch works is when you type RC, it's going to find everything in all of your commands where things might start with an R somewhere and a C somewhere, and it'll filter that list. When you give it a launch code, you're saying, if I type RC, it's much more likely that I mean this RC, not something else that just happens to have an R and a C in it, right? So that'll make it come up to the top. And usually one launch code is good. You don't have to put launch codes on everything. I don't recommend putting really long launch codes on things. If you have like 5 characters, it's usually best if it's just like 1 or 2 or 3. And it's okay if they're the same characters that you've used on other commands, because when you type RC, if 3 things come up, it's probably one of those 3 things. You just arrow down one and hit enter and you're good to go. So you can reuse launch codes. All right, so that's launch codes. Now let's talk about tags. Tags are a grouping for your commands. So let's say that I have tons of commands for esports. And whenever I get I'm doing a case that maybe has to do with cards or arrows or something like that, I know that I have commands for arrows, but I can't remember what they're all called. If I tag them all with the word arrows, then I can search for them by the tag, and it'll filter it and show me all of the commands that I have that are tagged with arrows, even if it doesn't say arrows in the actual command name itself. So that's just a trick. So this one's text related. So maybe, if you have a whole bunch of different formula commands and you want to keep all of your text related ones together, you can tag them with text. So let's just do that for now. So we did launch codes, we did tags. Let's just scroll down and look. Okay, so there's keyboard shortcut. Now this is like a really important one for esports, and let me tell you why. Diarmid Early uses OA Robot way more than people realize.
Yeah.
You just never see it because he assigns keyboard shortcuts, and he can just do his keyboard shortcut, and it runs it without doing Ctrl Shift O and then typing in a launch code or whatever and hitting enter and all of that. If you can just do boom, boom, boom in order to run that, you can do it very quickly. So it's hard. I have trouble remembering keyboard shortcuts myself, so I don't put keyboard shortcuts on everything. I mostly just put them on the things that I are most critical to be fast at. But let's put one on here. We can make it a Ctrl Shift R maybe. And the way you do that is you click the ... off to the right, and there's a little recorder for you to type that in.
Ooh.
So just do Ctrl Shift R and it'll capture that.
Nice.
And then hit confirm and it'll put that in there for you. Very good.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So the last thing, and this is a little bit advanced, but it's very, very helpful the more commands that you get. It's user context filter. Now, let me tell you what user context filter means. Reverse characters, would you ever run that on a blank cell?
No.
No.
Because you have nothing
to reverse. It doesn't make sense to run.
Yeah.
There's nothing... there's nothing to reverse in a blank cell, right? So when your OA robot comes up and you're on a blank cell, ideally you would never see reverse characters even show up in the command palette, right? Because it's just noise. So the better that you curate your commands by using user context filters, you can tell it the context in which it makes sense for this command to run. And so if you click on that, click in that box and click on the drop down off to the right, that one, there's tons of context filters that you can put in here. So there's one for at the so that's copied range. It's like active cell is not empty is one. So you could make it be not empty. You could also say it has to be a formula, or it has to be a spilled array, or it has to be a selection that's multiple columns wide, or there's all kinds of cool stuff that you can do in there to say, I only want this command to show up in this circumstance.
I can see this one. I can see this one on has comment being useful if you've got a workbook with loads of review comments and you're trying to do something with them, like the inbuilt comment filtering feature isn't that intuitive. So maybe you want to run a command to pull out all your comments or something.
Exactly. So go ahead and there's one more for curation purposes, and that is the note down there. So the note is, let's just type something a little bit longer in there for reverse characters. You can type the same thing as the description, but we just want to be able to see. We want to see that shows up in the generated documentation also.
Cool.
Great. So go ahead and click OK on that.
Success.
Great. And now hit F1 on reverse characters again to get your documentation back. Okay. So now look what's shown up. Before it only showed the formula as the property, but now you can see we've added formula.
We've got a tag.
Yeah, we have the tag showing up at the top, and we have our keyboard shortcut showing up, Ctrl Shift R. We have our user context showing up, and we have our launch codes. That's all included in the documentation now, so you can see all of that. And then if you scroll up to the top of that document, you'll see that also that reverse characters is now grouped in a section called text, because that's the tags that we created. So when it lists all of your commands, if you have 20 commands or whatever, you can have them grouped by tags so that they are kind of separated out.
Nice.
So that was curating your commands. Now, if we go back over to Excel, we can try our Ctrl Shift R if you want to do equals B3 in a cell, and then.
So this is super interesting, because if I click OA robot in this cell, it shouldn't show up because we said no context.
That's right.
Filtering
there you
for
go.
that, right? Ah, cool.
Reduces
so I'll click
the noise.
in. Yes. So let me do equals this, and then if I was to click just Ctrl Shift O, then it comes up. That's interesting. Okay. And now I'll just click Ctrl Shift R, which is the shortcut for it. And reverse.
So see how fast that was to run? Like, think about in competition, the difference between Ctrl Shift O, typing RC, you have to like mentally say, am I going to hit enter on the right thing because I don't want to run some other, remove columns or something, right? You hit enter, but if you can just do Ctrl Shift R and do that same thing, it's really fast. And that's how like some of the competitors are using OA Robot, is the things that they use the most, they are triggering from keyboard shortcuts.
That's so interesting. Yep. I feel like I've uncovered Dim's little secret weapon in a battle.
Very cool. Now there's one more thing I'm going to show you, and this is very, very powerful. Now, when you get a command collection from somebody else, you don't really want to be making changes to the properties in there. So it's like you may want to add a keyboard shortcut to a command that you got from me, like from one of my collections. But if you make that change to my collection, then if I give you an updated one with some bug fixes or some additional commands or whatever, you're going to lose your keyboard shortcut, right? So that's why we added a feature called Customize. So if you now go back into OA Robot and you let's first of all, I'm going to show you the customize dialog from the hamburger menu. That's to the right of Hypersearch box. So in there, it's personalized commands. So in personalized commands, this is where you can set overrides to personalized shortcuts. So if you have either a command that's already there that you want to set your own personalized shortcut to, you can do that. And you can also do it from the right-click menu. So why don't you go ahead and close out of this, and then right-click on, do it on your list characters because you already have,
Sure.
see it has personalize halfway down. So let's personalize. There's a bunch of things you can personalize, but we want to personalize the keyboard shortcut. There you go. So it takes you right to it. And then in that box on the right, you can hit the ... and you'll get that same dialog where you can do that Ctrl Shift L or whatever you want to name that one.
I'll make it a random one because I use Ctrl Shift L for filtering. So we'll do Ctrl Shift LC.
I don't think that you can give it 2 characters. I didn't know that
Oh, really?
was possible. Yeah, I think you, not sure what that would do. But here's the interesting thing. We support overloading keyboard shortcuts because what happens if you have Ctrl Shift L already assigned to some other command?
Let's try that then.
Yeah, so go ahead and do that and click close. All right, so let's get out of just click off of that and now do your Ctrl Shift L you have to do it on something that has text in it. Yeah.
Ctrl Shift L. Okay, that worked. Interesting.
But if you have 2 commands that are assigned to the same keyboard shortcut, like both of those commands were assigned to Ctrl Shift R, then when you do Ctrl Shift R, it's not just going to do like a random one of those 2. What it's going to do is it's going to bring up OA Robot and have it filtered to just those 2. In fact, if you do Ctrl Shift O again, and now type caret Shift 6.
Sorry, caret.
Sorry, yeah, the caret on your keyboard, Shift 6.
Oh, I see.
So look what it did. It just filtered everything that has a control. So caret is control, plus is shift. So if you type plus, see it's filtering those down. And then R. So Control Shift R is actually applies to 2 different commands.
Okay, so now if I press Control Shift R on let me just do that. I'll just delete this. So I have my cell. Now if I press Control Shift R,
so
it's going
what's
to use the
interesting
most
is
recent.
You had 2 commands showing up before.
Yeah.
It's right now only one is in context. So if you have 2 keyboard shortcuts assigned to 2 different commands, but the context is different, then you can have Control Shift R mean different things in different situations, right?
That's clever.
You can have Control Shift R do one thing if you're in a blank cell, and a different thing if you're in a cell with a spilled array, and a different thing if you're in a cell with a number in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very powerful.
Really clever. Very clever.
So all of that we call curation. And in our next video, we're going to talk about sharing your commands. You get everything all nice and curated, and you create this command collection that is a product that you want to like make available to your colleagues and the public or whatever. We want everybody to have Fay Robot. We're going to talk about the different ways that we can share your creations with others.
Awesome. Thanks, Erik.
You betcha.